main reason we're looking at this preaching project is to offer advice to someone who's looking for a style of preaching that we see as particularly Franciscan. Maybe for parish missions, maybe for regular homilies, but just looking for, what would you tell them? What should they do? How can they do what you do?
I'm just, well, I think I already mentioned that it's Franciscan when you are knowledgeable about your charism, so you know what to emphasize, and the biggest thing for a Franciscan is this humiliation of the Word by becoming human and then giving of himself even to the point of crucifixion. There you see this manifestation of love in humble service. It's humbling yourself to be of service. When you're full of your charism, you know what to bring out, what the message. That's the message. That's why Francis just he dropped everything else and gave of himself, and so I think that it's not the style. Everyone has a different style. I wouldn't imitate Bishop Sheen. No way. I'm not Bishop Sheen. I have my own personality, and I have to give it the proper expression. It should be graceful, it should be meaningful, and so on, but it's my way. And that is important because that brings variety into, the different ways that men and women preach. But the message should be the Franciscan thing, not the way. Perhaps also policies should be Franciscan in the sense that you're reaching out to the marginalized. The marginalized. Those are the ones you're reaching out to. So that's the Franciscan thing.
And does someone who is not of a Franciscan background, do you see that in other people's preaching? Do you see that how would they benefit from the Franciscan charism? Someone who is not of that background.
Well, the problem is that I do the preaching, I don't watch them. I mean, where do I go, I mean, I really don't know. Of course, what we do see is preachers on television. Mm-hmm. Recently, the smiling, what do they call him? This smiling... He has 20,000 people in this.
Oh, is it Joel Osteen?
Joel Osteen.
Prosperity gospel.
Yeah. And he's always positive. Positive. He's always got a smile on his. On the other hand, there's this bishop. He's a kind of big guy, and he kind of works himself up. I find it interesting to watch these different styles on television. I mean, that's the good thing about being into this ministry at this time, because you can see a lot of interesting examples. That's what you should watch, because it'll give you an idea of, well, whether your expression of yourself is good enough to interest people. I don't know if I answered that question.
Everything's wonderful. um,
The point is that you can't talk about everything's Franciscan. Is this going to be Franciscan? That's going to be Franciscan. That becomes that's stretching it. I don't think it's but rather the meaning, what you're conveying, the message you're conveying, and the way you're conveying it, and so on. But everyone has his own way of doing it.
and apparently people like your way.
Well, there are a lot of people do, yeah. Yeah.
So when you were talking about teaching homiletics, where did you teach?
Here.
Here at the...
We had 2 years of theology above. The building is gone because we don't need it anymore. That's where I started teaching.
Okay.
That's where I began my theological studies. The last 2 years were in Green Bay, but it was here that I began to teach that.
And this was the, was it the postulancy or the novitiate, or who were the people that you were teaching? Were they at all different levels?
The first 2 years of theology.
First 2 years of theology. And then where did they go?
Well, what happened then, we brought in the 2 years of theology from Green Bay here, and we used this house and that house for about a year or two, and then we moved the whole thing to West Chicago. But now you won't see a stone about a stone. It's all gone. I was there for almost 20 years. So there we had all 4 years. It was a big, very fine building, big chapel and all that.
And so they did all 4 years of their...
All 4 years of theology were there.
Okay. And, but now they do it at CTU? Yeah.
Well, once we, then in the year 70, I think it was 1970, we were short of students. So we didn't need the building. Eventually, we sold it and much of the property, and and so we sent our friars to different places. We went to the Dominicans in Dubuque, and then they went to St. Louis, but we didn't go to St. Louis, to continue with them. We chose CTU because one of our friars is an important professor at CTU, Father Leslie Hoppy. He's this Old Testament scripture teacher. Now, I could have gone with them to Dubuque and so on, but I said, no, I'm not for this age. I did not get a contemporary exposure to theology. On my own I did, but not in the academic circles. I don't fit in anymore. So I stepped out of that. And they were glad, I think.
Do you think that new preachers learn more by going out and doing the preaching, or by watching by example?
Well, are you asking whether it's a good idea for someone who's starting, in the ministry to watch others preach? Oh yeah, I recommend that. Just simply, but not just to anybody. I presume that they know something about the priests in the diocese, and if they find someone who stands out for one reason or another, I think it's a good idea. It's an excellent idea. But more important is the criticism, to face criticism from those who have to listen to you in the parish. But a number of them, and have them meet first on their own without your presence, and then meet with you, so that they can speak their minds without being, Everyone is so careful nowadays, they don't want to hurt anybody. And it's difficult to criticize, because I remember I had a friend, we were in theology, the two of us, and he's the one who introduced me to the liturgy. I'm very grateful to him for that. At any rate, one day, we were also practicing preaching. And he said, I'm going to have to preach, and he said, I'd like you to criticize me. Okay, so he preached, and I criticized him. He wouldn't talk to me for a month.
Oh, oh no, so he didn't really want
He
criticism,
didn't really
he wanted
want-
praise.
He was in denial.
Yeah.
Actually, he was a fantastic preacher. Oh, in Polish and English. Polish, you did very well. He was a genius. He was a genius. He died.
Did you preach in Polish?
I did, yeah. But I didn't, because my first language was Polish. My parents came from Poland, and they knew Polish only. They didn't know English in the 1920s. They had broken English, that's about it. I learned it from the kids in the streets. And then we had in school everything in Polish in the morning and everything in English in the afternoon.
At a parish school?
At the parish school, the Holy Trinity Parish. Which was good, because we didn't want to, just drop our heritage. The heritage is important. You're not really yourself unless you are appreciative of the whole of your heritage. I have 100 relatives in Poland.
And when did you begin preaching more in English than in Polish? When did that change happen?
Well, the circumstances. So, for instance, when I was in this area, I would go to, actually I was preaching in Polish to parish in Johannesburg. There was a suburb called Norwood, and it was all Polish, but very educated. And I was called upon to give them homilies in Polish, and then even a retreat. And they were appreciative because I didn't talk down to them. I met them on their own level, which was very difficult, because in Polish, that's a whole, you got to be, I felt, when I go to Poland, the first week I'm a little rusty, but after 1 week I am one of them, because I am one of them. Yeah. But I haven't had much opportunity to use Polish here, not much at all. Because people are now, it's mostly Spanish. That's the language that should be learned, and we have some who are doing that, Even our Polish parishes, they have Spanish, Polish, English. I gave a 40 hours at St. Casimir's in Chicago. They had a priest I gave it in Polish, I gave it in English, and another priest in Spanish.
So there are still parishes that see.
Well,
the
I
Polish
did that
preaching.
40 years ago, but I don't know if they're still. I think by now that they probably aren't, because the new generation of Poles who come are very well educated, and they usually know English. They study English before they even come, so they don't. And the children tend to use English only, because they're caught up in that, in the school and so on. You gotta be always talking English, buying, selling, working places, and so on.
But you said that in South Africa you did both Polish and English.
Yes. Yeah.
But did you need to learn any other languages, or was that?
Well, yes. There's a very strong Portuguese group, and I was going regularly to, not for long, but a certain time, to this Portuguese group, and I would ask someone to teach me how to pronounce the Portuguese. And even I even asked someone to translate it so that I would give it in Portuguese. So I would say the Mass in Portuguese, because there's always some Latin in it. And then I would preach in Portuguese. But it was translated. But they said after me, Father, I drop it.
No more Portuguese.
On the other hand, when I went to Malawi, they had a different language. And I, in no time at all, I learned to speak, not to speak, but to read Malawi and to say it. So I was able to do that very easily. And also Zulu, because what happened was, before I went to South Africa, I had some friends in Pullman, south side of Chicago, and they met a Zulu priest. And of course they talked about me going to South Africa, and they wanted me to meet this Zulu priest. Not only did I meet him, I used to go and meet with him once a week and go through the Mass in Zulu. So when I got to South Africa, after about a week or two, I started to pray the Mass in Zulu. So that's why they gave me the name, I forgot the name. Anywhere, it meant miracle.
Oh.
It meant miracle. It wasn't a miracle.
In Zulu?
Yeah. Because I said to her, this guy just came from America and he's using Zulu. But there was one deaf sister. She would watch me in the pulpit. And when I was with the Zulu sisters, I used to have a deaf sister translate for me the Zulu into the English into Zulu. I go into the pulpit, and because by that time I was able to speak Zulu, pronounce it, but I needed someone to translate it. At any rate, this old sister, she said, "My goodness, it's a strange priest we have there. You know, he speaks Zulu in church, but not in the refectory."
So now, when you were in South Africa, you would travel to places like Malawi, or
Yeah.
was that was in the same time period?
We did workshops in different countries. We went to Zimbabwe, we went to Malawi, we went to Uganda, we went to Zambia. I think that covers it. There's another one, Kenya.
Oh.
We're to Kenya.
And Mozambique?
We were close enough, but for some reason or other, we never went there.
And Tanzania is also a pretty close one?
In fact, we were supposed to go there, but something happened because we were giving workshops in Kenya, Uganda, Kenya, and we were supposed to go to Tanzania, but somehow it didn't work out. I forget what happened. So we saw quite a bit of Africa. Not that much because there are 50 countries.
It's a big place.
People say, go to Africa. No, you got to say what country in Africa. Because they're big countries.
I didn't realize that there would be Portuguese spoken in South Africa. I mean, I know in Mozambique.
Portuguese, because da Gama, the Knights of da Gama, the Portuguese, were one of the first ones to settle in South Africa, in Africa.
Okay.
Because they were the ones who found those sea routes. So they're strong in Mozambique. They're strong in, I forgot that other country nearby. In South Africa, they have a big contingent of Portuguese. Another group are the Lebanese. I had a good contact with the Lebanese and the Maronite Rite. I like that ritual. Maronite Rite. I liked it.
Is that like an Eastern, like
Lebanon, you know where Lebanon is. It's,
right, but I mean, is the rite like
the language, you mean, Lebanese?
No, I mean, is it like the Byzantine rites, like Ruthenian or something like that?
No,
When you say
it's
Maronite
different
rite,
from
what does that mean?
Byzantine and those that are, I'm familiar with. They're different. It's a different rite, yeah. Some people don't realize that there are so many rites. In fact, we are an unusual province because we have Byzantine rite and we have a Roman rite.
And when you go to your chapter next week, right? No, week after next, right?
Yeah, the 8th, I think it
Yeah.
is.
What kinds of things happen in relation to talking about the kinds of things you've done, the going to South Africa or doing parish missions or all the retreat things? Is that anything that you talk about during chapter? And
Well, the big thing we're talking about is that Pope Francis stole what we have. I mean, he has made universal what used to be particular. Now, we appreciate that very much because it's like saying this is the charism that is needed these days. But we find ourselves in situations that are not in keeping with that charism. And we're too old to put the toothpaste back into the tooth. That's our problem. We know that we have to be wearing our habits everywhere and mingling with the marginalized, knocking on doors, mixing with everybody. That's what Francis is saying to everybody, to the pastors and so on. Don't close your doors. Don't cut yourself off. Mingle and so on. And don't judge anybody. Now is the time when you can't persuade people because they say there's no truth. It's what they call that postmodernism. Before we accepted reason, that was the intellect, the most important thing. There was truth, and science arrives at that truth, except for the invisible. We don't know anything about that. That's what we're into. Well, you get the picture. But we're trying. We're taking it very seriously.
is it surprising to have a pope who seems to embody that charism, that's not where he came from, that, because he's Jesuit?
No, that doesn't, no, I mean, we understand what he's doing, and it's remarkable because, a Jesuit has a history that is rich, and they're even doing better than we in vocations, and they have always contributed their contribution was tremendous. We have no problem. We were happy about that. Cripes. I remember when they first announced it, and they said he was taking the name of Francis, and all of us were saying, "Oh, he means Francis Xavier." That was the immediate reaction. Whoever would have dreamed, that he was going to say Francis, Saint Francis of Assisi. That was something. I was immediately struck by that, and I made a decision. I was going to wear my habit everywhere. I said, this is it. And I really wanted to go with the homeless in Chicago, but I'm 96, and they're saying, hey, he already is frail, and you want to go there? I'm not frail, but it's a problem. It's a problem. Actually, if I went there, I would have been my own neighborhood.
Oh.
Because it's a convent of Holy Trinity. They had 50 nuns. Now they have 30 or 40 homeless Polish men. They have a problem with drink. I speak Polish, and of course I'm born and raised, but they didn't take it seriously enough.
In his Joy of the Gospel, Pope Francis, he talks about preaching in there. Have you read the Joy of the Gospel?
In fact, I'm giving that to our council, Secretary Franciscan Council. I didn't go through it as yet, the whole thing, but I'm taking that very seriously.
Yeah, he has a nice section about the homily and how to preach it,
and it's very needed, very needed. See, that's why I'm stressing the Bible, because too many are preaching psychology, their experience and this kind of thing, which makes it entertaining and interesting. But don't leave that Word of God out. If you leave that out, if you're not inspired by that, if you're not guided by that, hey, forget it. Go home. That's the... Because the Spirit needs your cooperation. And the cooperation requires immersing yourself in the Bible. Otherwise, he can't do his job, which is a transformation into the image of Jesus Christ. It's simple, but not easy.
No. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed this. Nobody asked me anything about my...
This was wonderful. Really wonderful.
I had no idea what this is going to be about. I thought we were going to talk about some dissertation.
It's about a book, but, same idea.
I enjoyed this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your
You're
wisdom.
welcome. I hope this isn't the last time.
Yeah, but I need to hunt you down again before you disappear to South Africa for a while. And then when you come back, I'll come ask you stories about that. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.